Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. We have an all-opinion maker panel today with four legislators out of Jefferson City, starting with Representative Gene Evans. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
Bradley Ellington, welcome back. First time, actually. Very glad to have you, sir.
Good being here.
Representative Gretchen Banger from St. Louis County, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
John Weeman, friend of the show, been on many times. Lower third should be right this time.
Pleasure to be here.
Representative Banger, we're glad to have you on. Let's talk about jobs. You have jobs popped up in Amazon's going to put one of their fulfillment centers in, putting these in all over the country, going to put one in St. Peter's. You have in the Boot Hill, the old Noranda factories firing back up as a steel mill. Granite City in the Metro East area of St. Louis, you have new people going to work, another 500 people going to work on steel mills. It looks like, I think even a Democrat have to say, some of President Trump's policies are having some early on success.
I think it's terrific. I mean, we certainly need the jobs here in St. Louis and in our region. And I know in Granite City, I had friends that worked there and they had to move out of state, and hopefully they'll be able to come back. And down in the Boot Hill, they definitely need jobs there, and it's just wonderful to have that smelter starting back up. So it's just terrific for our state.
John Weeman, you do tax cuts, then you start standing up for America on the world stage, bullying some of the bullying that's happened to our country from China and other countries. Donald Trump's not going to get bullied.
Well, you know, the president's about results, and as a business person, that's usually what we forget to do in government. We focus on, oh, we're going to solve a problem, and then we do pass a law thinking we're going to solve a problem, and then we don't solve it. But the president's about results, and I think you can see, based on looking at the stock market, looking at the economy, this recent tariffs, you know, trying to protect American industry, especially steel and aluminum. That's very important to our state. So it's good to see that we're moving the economy in the right direction.
Brandon Ellington, I mean, you know, stylistically with some of the tweeting and stuff, I get it. Donald Trump doesn't come off the best. But actually, tariffs are a policy that Union Democrats have begged for forever, and it was President Clinton that signed NAFTA. I mean, some of these industrial jobs, these are policies Donald Trump's reaching across the aisle and adopting from generally union positions.
I would agree with you, except for the fact he didn't reach across the aisle to do this one. So the way he is trying to implement these tariffs...
Well, Democrats are no longer for the union guys most of the time. They're for free trade.
No, but when we look at the tariffs, even when we look at China dumping steel and aluminum, et cetera, we know it's issues, but this is not the way that you go about it. You do not burn your allies and your friends intentionally. And this is what we're seeing with our president and his tariffs policy. Not necessarily the tariffs, but the way he's trying to implement it.
I mean, is it your friend if they dump aluminum on the market and put 1,000 people out of work in the Boot Hill?
No, I don't think so. And quite frankly, everything Donald Trump does gets criticized initially, and then originally the tax cuts that he proposed got huge criticisms, and they polled poorly because people didn't understand what they were. Now people are seeing the money in their paycheck, they're getting bonuses, the economy's humming along, and we're seeing results. He is a results-oriented president, and we're seeing good results.
Well, there's things he does that are stylistically that I think are not unpresidential, and I don't think are good. However, I mean, when he produces, it could be argued that 2 or 3 years down the road there's going to be problems in the economy, but I mean, it probably is an easy time to support the president because he actually produces. And you can go to Granite City or St. Peter's or the New Madrid to see
I've actually had a lot of people say that to me, that they were skeptical or maybe they didn't vote for him in my district, and now they're saying he's actually doing what he said he was going to do. And we're excited to see a president who does what he says he's going to do. And nobody, I mean, stylistically, he's no different now than he was a year ago. He is who he says he was, and so there weren't really any surprises in terms of some of his flamboyance, so to speak.
If I could, with the producing, if we look at the tax credits and the tax cuts that he did, and we look at the companies that came back the following month and they cut employees, I don't see the production. I see a lot of showmanship. I don't see a lot of follow-through with actual production. So if we look at AT&T, the large companies that received benefits in December, they came back at the end of January and they cut their staff. So on one hand, we say that he's producing, but people are getting put out of work. Even when we talk about the stock market, stock goes a couple ways. It either goes up or it goes sideways. So over the past
It can go down too.
it can go down.
Seen that, yeah.
I usually don't like to talk about the red, but over the last couple of years, we've seen the stock market going up. Since President Trump's been in office, it's been going sideways, right? So we can't accredit the entire stock market boom to the president's policies.
There's with a prediction, though. John Weeman, will Republicans run in Missouri with a president at 50% approval rating next November?
Well, it's hard to predict that far into the future, but I would say we have a good shot if the economy continues to do what it's supposed to do, based on the tax cuts, based on other changes that he's made at the federal level. I think we're in a good position to do that.
Will you be running against a party with a president at 50% in Missouri?
I think that we're going to have a good showing. I think it's going to be the year of the woman. So I think we're going to see a lot of women get elected.
Trump get to 50 in Missouri by November?
No, I'm loving both our governor and Trump. I think they're both very good for Democrats.
Maybe. What do you think?
I think he'll stay around 50%. He'll move around in that area. I mean, he's probably not at 50% in my district, but statewide, I think so.
Barry, let's talk about an issue that was an interesting debate on the floor: prevailing wage laws. Prevailing wage laws mandate certain wages for different jobs for public projects and things throughout the state. It was an interesting debate. You had a very interesting amendment, but let's first, before we get to that, talk about the actual bill. You're an opponent.
Yeah, no, I actually am, because I feel that we should protect public sector work, right? So the prevailing wage, and when we talk about small counties, I'm actually amenable though, because they don't have the same population and demographics. So I wish we could actually work on a bill, if we're going to do prevailing wage, that takes into account both areas, the rural areas and the cities, because the city's prevailing wage is a positive thing. Rural areas, I can see how it can actually hurt though.
Representative, isn't that I mean, look, I think in the Senate the compromise is, I think most fair people, even folks in the labor movement, Democrats, say Reynolds County, the prevailing wage is not accurate. But I think folks in the St. Louis metropolitan area, we talk to the construction folks, that's not that far off. Is there not a way to compromise on the bill and maybe cut rural counties out?
Well, I'm certainly always open to compromise. I think you have to have an open mind whenever you're looking at a difficult issue. But prevailing wage is really, we're setting artificial wages. And whenever you do that, it creates problems. It just violates all the rules of economics. And so on that principle alone, I think it's bad. But with regards to prevailing wage in the urban areas, I don't really think it's an issue, because most of the wages are much higher, given the cost of living is much higher in this area. But in the rural areas, it's really, prevailing wage is really having a devastating effect on their ability to be able to use their money wisely and be able to build the buildings that they need it to build. So I would say that certainly excluding the rural counties from prevailing wage is a good start, but I think fundamentally the problem with prevailing wage is you're artificially setting wages.
Texas County is, it's probably not, it is an impediment, but it's not an impediment in your district, is it?
No, I agree with my colleague here. I just think, setting wages it's not good economic. I mean, I'm an economic freedom person, and I think when you set those wages higher like that, and I mean, maybe that goes against the tariffs, but in general, I think the market should decide what people get paid, and so that's kind of one of my core beliefs, and so that's where I'm at with prevailing wage.
You brought an interesting amendment that was brought by Representative Ellington, though. I said, if you're going to start messing with these things, why not have equal pay? That's where the debate seemed to get very interesting in the House.
It was very interesting, and I agree with the amendment, and it needs to be addressed. There should be equal pay among everyone that's working. And as far as the prevailing wage, I think that it's a great thing. It sets wages at a certain level, and that causes all the wages to raise up from the bottom up to the top. And it's a ripple effect. If we don't have our prevailing wage, people are going to receive less and less money. Prevailing wage is a good thing.
Is this a political issue in St. Louis and Kansas City and a real issue in say, Iron County?
I am open to the discussion with the rural areas, maybe looking at a different way to factor that in, but the prevailing wage is set there, and that's a high wage, and it's good for St. Louis, and it's good for Kansas City, and it's good for our whole state. I feel that, and I know, and you've seen other states, Indiana, as a matter of fact, those projects ended up costing more once they removed prevailing wage in their state. So it sets a wage, and if we don't have prevailing wage, folks are going to be making less money, and it's going to be a trickle down effect.
Is there, somebody said though, if you have a prevailing wage law that gives a local control, each county, let's say. You've never served in a legislature that had any local control advocates, but once upon a time, Republicans were advocates of local control. If you see a bill come back from the Senate that says a county can opt out, do you think that passes the House?
Yeah, I think it does, actually. And I just want to address one thing about the equal pay. We already have laws in the state that address equal pay. So while I 100% agree with equal pay, I think that there was some kind of hang up about some people who voted against that amendment who were Republicans, when in all honesty they were just saying we already have that in Missouri.
The bill comes back, gives an opt-out. Does it pass the House?
I think it certainly has a good chance.
Be the first local control bill, maybe, I don't know, it's in 10 years maybe, since Republicans took over?
Well, you know, when you talk about local control, I mean, that's an issue that I certainly want to make sure that we have the opportunity for local governments to control their destiny to a certain extent. But people have to be reminded that they only exist because the state allows them to exist. And so they always get upset about, well, you're telling us what to do. Well, yeah, the Constitution says we have that authority. So that's kind of
Ronald Reagan talked about far-off bureaucrats in a tower somewhere. Sometimes Republicans talked about the government that governs close to the people governs best. Not anymore.
Yeah, a couple issues though, especially with consistency. So when we talk about artificial prices, that's what a tariff is. So prevailing wage, artificial tariffs, right? Same thing when we're talking about creating prices that aren't necessarily there or fixtures that aren't necessarily there.
Imagine being a right-winger in a think tank with dealing with Donald Trump, your head would explode.
No, I know.
You're supposed to support these things, and then he just,
Nah, it would leak out my ear. The other thing I want to highlight will be the Department of Labor. So if we actually had laws that ensured that women had equal pay, we wouldn't see a disparity. And you can go to the Department of Labor, and you'll see disparity between men, women, so-called minority women, men, and it's not made up. It's not an opinion. It's
Let's talk
facts.
about
It's
something that
empirical.
is real, the sports tax credits. The SEC tournaments in St. Louis this weekend, that's something the government did that's actually working.
Yeah, it is working. And so that bill was passed with Eric Burleson and Eric Schmidt a few years ago. It's going to sunset. So we have another bill that's being heard on Tuesday to continue this because we're seeing all of these events. The other thing that this new version does is it expands it to these smaller communities so they can take advantage of not only these big college sports, but also a $13 billion travel sports industry with kids. When all these tournaments, if you've got kids, you know, in school, you know about these, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good thing. It's good for the economy.
Something that's actually working, right?
Yes, it's actually working, and it's a known fact. Tourism is one of our biggest industries here, and for every dollar we spend, we receive $4 back into our community and into our state, so it's a good thing. And as the representative said, the sports issue and the cheer and the dance and marching bands, it's just phenomenal, and that's what people are doing.
I was the head mom for my daughter's cheerleading competition last weekend in Cape. It was great. We won. Good thing?
You know, I generally don't like tax credits, but if it can be proven to me that they have a positive return on investment, we know it generates a positive return on investment, I'm for it. And I will tell you, I looked up in 2016 on the Missouri Accountability Portal, it said that the Missouri Amateur Sports Tax Credit generated what cost the state $671,000. And we brought in, I'm sure we brought in over $20 million in revenue off of having the Missouri Valley Conference come in. And so that's demonstrable proof that that tax credit worked.
We have to bring in a little revenue, but hope we all stick around. We'll be right back with segment 2 of our Opinion Maker panel after this.
In 2008, Republic Services acquired the Bridgeton landfill in a merger. Since then, we've invested $200 million to clean up the site and to maintain environmental compliance. We do that while staffing the facility 24/7. That's because we support permanent solutions that are safe for our neighbors and clean up the environment. We're committed to doing what's right. That's what drives us every day. We're a part of the community, and we're here for the long haul. Republic Services. We'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Let's talk about another issue that has permeated a lot of the debate this session. It's the governor scandal. It has now reached into, you all voted for a committee to investigate the governor, led by Chairman Jay Barnes, Representative Evans. He has now started work. I think it was an interesting statement about maybe some of the governor's DPS folks that he has to do at Jefferson City Police Department. It does look a little rough, but he's been criticized for secrecy. I don't know. I think that in this situation, if you have to do something like put up some black plastic, but you do keep your word, and if you ask people to testify in secret, it's probably worth it to keep your word.
Well, absolutely, and quite honestly, if these were open, he'd be criticized for not protecting their privacy. So I think the other point that was brought up to us, because we discussed this in caucus too, is we don't want one witness to get word of someone else's testimony or see it publicly and then try to replicate that or argue against it. They want to have integrity in this investigation, and the great thing is this has moved it away from all of us. Right, so we were able to get to work. The House and the Senate are clicking along. They're doing their jobs in the investigation, and really nobody else, I mean, this week is really even talking about it. We're just getting to work. I mean, we were already working, but incredibly productive week with this sort of burden of worrying about what's going to happen or not happen with the governor sort of being taken away from us, at least temporarily, while they investigate and get to the facts and get away from the rumors.
Representative, I thought it moved quickly, as it should. This week they'll probably have some of the most substantial people testifying already before them. I thought they were kind of getting to work and getting after it.
No, I have all faith in Representative Barnes. Let me state that first off. And I actually agree with the representative over here with the House and the Senate getting back to work, not worrying about the governor. But personally, I have concerns about the committee because we have a criminal case going on, and then we have a House committee that's convened to actually go through and testify, have witnesses testify, et cetera. I'm curious about the legality of it and what's actually going to come out of the committee, because if I was under a criminal investigation, I would not come into the House, and I would have every right to not do it because it creates a conflict between my criminal case and what the House is actually looking for. And again, I have all faith in Representative Barnes, no ifs, ands, or buts, but I have concerns about the makeup and the effectiveness of the committee.
If you're in a case, though, you know the facts, right? You know the truth. If you're the governor, it's a little bit, I think it's an interesting thing. You have a criminal case. Obviously, the governor has every right to aggressively and viciously defend himself. But the case to stay in office isn't, just because you didn't commit a crime, right? The case to stay in office is up to you.
Right, right. And I agree with Representative Evans. The committee, I have faith in Representative Barnes and, having a thorough investigation and keeping everything quiet and secret the way it should be. There should be no rumors. And that was something that was brought up on the floor. All these rumors. Let's get to the facts.
Well, that is an interesting point. I mean, I think they're obviously probably the right person's running it. He's been praised by all rounds. And I thought, yeah, it's not a good look to see black plastic over the door, but I mean, I think it also means you needed to do that. I think it's a testament to the Jefferson City Police and Representative Barnes that he's keeping his word. People are secret, but an interesting time, a criminal investigation is not the same as whether you should be impeached from office.
True. I will tell you that the purpose of this committee is to gather the facts. Yeah. Because we don't have all the facts. No, there's an ongoing criminal investigation, as Representative Ellington had alluded to. And so by us doing our own investigative research, we don't want to compromise that ongoing investigation that's occurring. The bottom line is that we need to allow the committee to do its job, to gather the facts. If they have to do it by promising some confidentiality and protecting the identity of the witnesses so we can gather the facts, then that's what we need to do, let that process work itself out. At the end, I'm confident that we will be given the facts and it will be shared with the public, and that we will be able to make a decision, informed decision, as to what we do from that point on with the governor.
And the Attorney General is now making his investigation move forward. He's, I know two folks that he's actually interviewed, and he was in there himself doing that. It looks like his investigation may be, as more facts come out, the mission continues this week, said, we didn't give that list to anybody. No one had permission to take it. Looks like the New York Attorney General is now looking into this. That is a unique part of this that's not been talked about a lot in the House.
That's correct, and it'll be interesting to see how that list got to the point to where it was used or not used, or how it got there, went from one person to another person. It'll be interesting to find out the actual facts with that. So,
I did find it interesting. The governor's criminal defense lawyer, Ed Dowd, he said that Kim Gardner's investigation was an embarrassment, the worst thing he's seen in 40 years. Kim Gardner, the first African-American woman ever elected to that office. The Yale-educated white male Josh Hawley's investigation, they haven't said much about.
No, they haven't. That's quite interesting, isn't it?
I actually want to say something about that if I could.
Yeah.
He came out with a statement where he called her a reckless liberal, and I actually took offense to that because I served with former Representative Gardner when she was in the House, and one thing that I do know about her is she does her homework, and she has never been reckless. She wasn't reckless in the House, and it seemed demeaning, just like you drew the parable between our AG and our circuit attorney here in the city of St. Louis. Why is one reckless liberal doing something they shouldn't be when they're using the color of the law to do their job, and the other one isn't? And this goes to the underlying operations of our governor, going to the multiple investigations that he's currently up under, going to the multiple senators and members that he's threatened. He has issues, and this highlights his mentality. And again, this is why I'm concerned about the criminal case, because I want to make sure we don't collude anything, and all the evidence that comes out is legally protected.
Representative Evans, is Josh Hawley a reckless liberal?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, Josh Hawley is, you know, I've worked with his office on some legislation. In fact, we worked together with him and the Press Association to come out with something to strengthen the Sunshine Law, and that bill should be coming up for our hearing soon. But he does stay in his lane. He's not over, Attorney General's not over lobbying us on any bills or anything like that. He just helps us with information that we need. The other thing I just want to point out, I don't think it serves anyone well to attack either the prosecutor or the victim. There were some statements made by the defense last night saying that perhaps some witness was in some sort of legal trouble and made a deal. I mean, I don't know if any of that's true. We don't know. But it bothers me when we are attacking people here instead of defending the governor. So let's stick to defending the governor and the facts and not attack the prosecutor, the victim, or the process. That's how I feel about it.
You think that's, I mean, John Wieman, I've never thought of Josh Hawley as a reckless liberal, but it is interesting to hear the attacks, and I don't know why they'd be that much different. If investigating the governor makes you a reckless liberal and the worst ever, or it could be where you went to school, what race you are, and what color you are.
Well, once again, just by virtue of that situation, it's obvious it's political. He's running for U.S. Senate for crying out loud. So whatever he does is going to be scrutinized, whether it's good or bad. He's going to be brought up for political reasons that, oh, he didn't do this right.
Well, he had a bad day with the confided. I mean, do you believe that the executive privilege exists in Missouri law? I mean, I don't think that's not real.
To be fair, he does not have subpoena power. The Sunshine Law has no teeth in it.
That's the real problem.
That's the problem, and that's what we're addressing.
Can you fix that in this law?
In the law that we have proposed, yes.
Look, I thought it was not a good look. It wasn't Josh Hawley's best day in office when he released that report. Not even that he cleared him, just the way he did it. However, I think the real problem wasn't that he was weak. It may just be the law just doesn't have it.
The law is weak.
And that's a great point, because we have a lot of laws. I'm working on a law right now that deals with new technology. I mean, it's an insurance bill that deals with, right now, insurance companies have to submit everything. Anytime there's a policy change, they have to send you a new paper copy. They can't send you an electronic copy of your policy. And so this updating the Sunshine Law to apply to that, Confide is a new type of app. I wasn't even aware of it until I heard about it when the governor was using it. I'm like, that's kind of an interesting app. But my point
He's just trying not to get subpoenaed now.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The issue isn't just the app; it's the operations, the way he motivates, the way he operates. Everything, and I agree with you. The Sunshine Law is weak. We need to have more teeth, but we should also have a governor that's not intentionally doing things to circumvent the law. And attacking a prosecutor is circumventing the law. That can be considered the same as our president trying to go after Mueller, trying to tamper with the investigation. And again, it's the way he operates, and that's what makes me nervous.
Well, it's pretty different. I mean, Donald Trump's not been indicted for anything.
No, but I'm talking about operations. If I'm doing something to make somebody look like they're not doing their job or that their job is political, then I'm trying to persuade the facts. And as the governor of the state of Missouri, we should have confidence that the way he operates is above board.
Well, I need some
facts.
Not saying anybody's perfect. You're a big-time Kansas City lawmaker. I'm just a simple hillbilly from West Butler County. What is industrial hemp?
Oh, well, that's something that I actually think we need to pass here. Because if we look in the, I want to say it was 1937, it was actually somebody in around the state of Missouri that was one of the leading proponents to make hemp illegal. And he was in the cotton industry. So when we talk about hemp, we're talking about textiles, plastics, car frames, and all type of stuff, ropes, clothes. things that would actually benefit the state of Missouri. And I believe Representative Kirkman has a bill in the House that passed out to the Senate. I support the bill 100%, and I think it's something that would greatly create more jobs in rural areas, because when you look at our production value of it, it has a different production value as opposed to corn. When you're talking about depleting the soil, deposits, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's actually something good.
What do you think?
I think it's the closest thing to a silver bullet as you're going to get when it comes to rural eco-devo. I mean, the opportunity, what you're talking about, the soil, and I don't think any of us here are ag experts. We're all from suburban areas, but talking to my colleagues and people from the Farm Bureau talking about what this can do to help farmers, it's pretty incredible.
Let's pass.
I think it'll pass, and I think it hasn't passed because people think that hemp is marijuana, and it's not. So if we can get that through everybody's head that it's not, and it's for rope and construction and all types of things, then it will pass, and it'll be a great thing, especially for our rural areas.
I mean, when you have a bill sponsored by Senator Munslinger and the Farm Bureau's in support, I don't think it's for smoking doobies, right? I mean,
that would be correct. I have voted for that bill ever since I've been in the legislature. I think it's a good bill, and it certainly is, I think has a very good chance of passing there, given the fact the Senate has passed it and we've passed it, so we're in good position to pass that bill.
It's one of those bills where the Senate can't say, oh, you have to take ours, right? You can go to conference on that and come together and maybe actually pass one the old-fashioned way. Maybe it was the way it's meant to be done, right?
Well, we have time yet to go to conference. If it was the last week of session, then I'd say we might be in a different position. But I think the legislature, we can get together in conference and probably work out a pretty good deal and bring this bill home.
Well, it's the last minute of this show, so with that in mind, who won the week?
I'm going to go with my my home county, St. Charles County and St. Peters.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazon fulfillment, right? Big deal.
Yep.
So will I get my Prime
jobs.
order that day now, or how's that work?
It might be like that hour, you know, maybe by remote, drone.
Thanks to the good folks at St. Peters. Who won the week?
Representative Roan for standing up on the House floor and saying, I had misinformation, I shared it with the body, and I made a mistake, and I want to give you the correct information. So it was really great that he did that.
Statesman Don Roan.
I don't agree with him, but Representative DeGroot, because he made Missouri, if this becomes law, he's going to make us hard to for people that have asbestos-related diseases to seek reparations to the courts. So DeGroot.
Go big or go home.
I'm going to say pregnant offenders and their babies, since we passed the anti-shackling bill.
Congratulations on the bill, by the way. I'm going to say Melissa and Jeff Rowe for the birth of Rockwell Rowe this week. Congratulations to them. And we hope to see you next week here on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.
Melanie's a good kid. I call her a kid. She's not a kid, but she's a kid to me. She is kind and complicated.
She's kind of a little quirky, but she has the greatest personality. She's always up to do things, wants to do fun stuff. So Melanie has Down syndrome. She has some definitely health issues. She has a speech impediment that makes it difficult for her to communicate. So a lot of things she has to maybe show you, or she has a hard time getting words out.
Yeah, where was this one taken? Is that your aunt's house?
She gets up and then she gets herself dressed. Puts her dirty clothes in the hamper. She's very self-sufficient that way. She comes into the kitchen and staff provide her medication for her and she takes it. And then staff prepares breakfast for her. We have her wipe off the table. She might need a prompt to do that, but she does that on her own. 3 days a week she goes to program for Easter seals, and she does a lot of activities throughout the day with that.
She is thriving with independence. being in this house, in this program. She's very happy to be here. This is her home. It's an amazing journey that has happened to her.
She says she'll visit her family, but she wants to come home. So she feels like this is her home, and there's nothing you can make better than for her to be like, this is my home. We're working on different things all the time, so it's a continuous work in progress. We're looking at having her learn her address and phone number. That's been difficult for her, just to memorize it. But we do repetition every day.
You want to go look for some DVDs?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know where she'd be if there wasn't for Easter Seals. She would be probably having a less fulfilling life.
I'm very grateful to Easter Seals for the opportunity that she's been given. I've seen huge changes in her since she's been here to be on her own. And this is the best way that she can be on her own.
Where's your home? Here? Yeah. This is your home.
And I love this job. There's not a day that I don't want to not come here. And I know I'm making a difference. You can see that Melanie's happy, and that's probably our biggest goal, is we want our individuals to have rights and freedoms, and you can tell that she's very happy with that. She gets to live her life on her terms, and she's happy doing it.
Who's in this picture with you?
Daddy. She lost her dad about 4 years ago, and they were very tight. They were very close, and I'm sure he's smiling down right now.
We help people with disabilities be as independent as possible. We help them live out their life as full members of our community. People with disabilities want to do the same things you and I do. They want to work, they want to be valued, they want to have friends, and we help them achieve those goals.
We have to set priorities as a society, as a state, of what's important to us. And I think supporting individuals with disabilities is a really important thing for us to do. It's honoring the dignity of every human being and what their capabilities are and what their potential is, and allowing them to pursue whatever that is.
Many people with developmental disabilities need lifetime care. So we have a choice as a community. We can put them in institutions and nursing homes, which is expensive and inhumane, or we can help them live in the community and be as independent as possible. We can teach them the skills that maximizes their ability, whatever that is. That's good not only for the individual with a disability and their family, but it's good for the entire community.
That happiness that comes, that fulfillment, that dignity that people are allowed to have when we embrace the opportunities that are out there for people with disabilities is something that ripples across society. And so it obviously has an impact for that individual, but for their neighbor to see that individual working and having those interactions, and then that spreading across our state is an important thing. I think it should color how we view the world and what our priorities are.
The hope and opportunity that Easter Seals offers to people with disabilities would not be possible without the support of our community. Our donors, volunteers, neighborhoods that welcome people with disabilities, and our champions in Jefferson City make all of this possible.